Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing okay.
Just introduce yourself and where you're from. Get familiar with everybody.
You mean when they ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have to go around the room and
No, we're not
do that. I mean, we can if we'd like, but yeah, I'll kind of open it up for questions. This was a fun night, an enjoyable night, and we weren't quite sure what it looked like, but it was a fantastic turnout, and I'm really appreciate everyone who put it together here, and certainly appreciate those that took their time to come out and just kind of get to know ourselves and our staff here a little bit. So it was a lot of fun.
Adam Jardy, Columbus Dispatch. You touched on this a little bit out there, but I just wonder, as you've gotten to spend some time with the guys this summer and go through some workouts, what you've maybe learned about the roster that you didn't know when you took the job or that you didn't know before this period began?
I don't know if I think I'm still in the process of learning, but I think there's maybe some versatility at the 3, 4, and 5 that maybe I didn't know that I'm excited about. I'll be very candid with you that when I was on the road, I had some people who would corner me and say and have their opinions about our team and why we struggled last year, and that was interesting to hear kind of from their perspective, and it's conversations that I'm going to have with our guys, but probably our versatility in some of those positions was something that stuck out the most.
So those were things that maybe when people corner you and talk to you about that stuff, is that stuff that you had looked at on film or stuff you felt that you had a handle on, or was this new perspective that gave you, more information on this team?
As I've watched, it was some things, I think it maybe confirmed what I had suspected. And I think that's good because it gives you an idea of, hey, these are areas that we need to definitely improve on if we're going to improve. So it was only confirmed by, I think, people who had either watched us play or competed against us and kind of from a distance, and it was stuff they volunteered. I wasn't trying to pick their brain. In some cases, stuff they volunteered. So.
Bill Landis from Cleveland.com. I know you and Thad probably had very similar philosophies in terms of how you want to run your program, but when you first got here to work with the guys, how much ground was there to make up between what they were used to and how you like to run a workout or a practice? Were things similar, or was it very different for them?
Well, I think our conditioning needed to improve. That was one of the first things that kind of I noticed, and perhaps that's a little bit of a difference in how I would like to do a summer workout versus maybe what that. I don't know. I don't have all the necessarily the. But that was one of the things. I think our conditioning. That was one of the first things I noticed that it needed to get better. And I hope that this time next year we'll be more conditioned. That's not anybody's fault because it was I think a combination of maybe some workouts, the transition, all those kind of things. But I think all in all, the approach of our guys has been outstanding. Their work, I think going back to what you asked earlier, if you said, hey, what's one thing that maybe has not surprised me, but one thing that I've taken note of is the quality of people in the locker room. And I mean that wholeheartedly. That has, Jay Sean and I mean, the leadership that we have from some of those upperclassmen, I'm excited about that because I think they are really high-quality guys. And that probably would be the first thing that kind of jumped out to me. But it's been exciting. I don't know if I answered. Okay.
Patrick Murphy, Bucknuts, 24/7 Sports. You mentioned in your first press conference about wanting to get Thad's kind of blessing to take this job. And I'm wondering if you can elaborate kind of what that conversation was like, how, what went into that and why you wanted to do that and how that went, I guess.
Well, I respect, I think I think most importantly, I have a relationship with him, and I respect him as a person, as a coach, and the quality of his work. So I was interested, I think if he would have said something other than, hey, this is a really good opportunity for you and your family, and here's what I think you should think of, then it might have created more pause for me. I just think, he's a guy I've known for a while, and we weren't super close, but I would say he was a good friend in coaching. So I think just having his perspective from being here was important. And like I said, the tenure that he had in the middle, whether you look at it, the 8 or 9 year run, you could argue was better than anybody else's tenure in that time. The level of success this program had. So I would be foolish, I think, not to kind of ask him, his thoughts, and also maybe even pick his brain on, hey, why do you think there were some struggles in recent years? But he was great. He was great. He was more than willing to give me the time. He said, if you take it, I just remember him saying, get ready. So that, I guess, can mean a lot of different things, but so I'm getting ready. So.
Ryan Ginn with Land of 10. You spoke a little bit about the players you added out there, but just I wanted your thoughts on, you brought one in from Butler. There's a graduate transfer, a reclassification, and a walk-on. Just what was the process like of bringing in players from all different kind of manners? And, I guess, what did you think about, what you were able to get and kind of what the process was like?
Yeah, it was unlike anything I ever experienced. Having to put the finishing touches to a roster together in June, I think, was unlike anything our staff had experienced. And the biggest thing we didn't want to do is we didn't want to mortgage the future by adding guys to long-term, quote-unquote, scholarships. That was important for us. So that's why you kind of look at it and you say, obviously, we believe Moose is going to be a good player, so that was an easy one for us. And Kyle was an absolute no-brainer. He was obviously recruited by the previous staff and offered, and he was important, obviously being an Ohio kid. The other young man, we had some serious issues in terms of needing depth in terms of ball handling. So, there just weren't many guys available that fit what we were looking for and that would fit the kind of people we want that could get into graduate school here in terms of being a fifth-year young man. Andrew was one of those guys, so we certainly took advantage of getting Andrew Dockich, and I'm glad we did. And then we'll have to piece together some walk-ons too, piece together our roster with some added walk-ons, and we're in the process of doing that now.
Dan Hope from 11 Warriors. You mentioned you've been out on the road recruiting. What has your sales pitch been like to recruits, and is it significantly different here than it would have been when you were at Butler?
It's different because the places are different, but I think what we have maybe that's different than what I was communicating there is we have opportunity for immediate impact and playing time because of the lack of depth on our roster and some of the turnover in the next couple years. So I think we've communicated that, but more than anything, like we would with any young man, what we've really tried to do is communicate what this place is, our vision for the program, and our vision for that particular recruit. How we see them fitting in. So that's been good. It's been receptive. We've had great conversations. I don't think I'd be forthright if I said, hey, in some cases we're a little bit behind in 18 with some young men, but I think we're making up ground, and that's exciting to me. And some of the relationships that we had prior have continued, and that's helpful. And we're very excited about that. We're excited about putting together a really solid class.
Coach, Jeff Rapp with iHeartMedia. As a quick follow-up to Pat's question about Coach Matta, since you do have that mutual respect and rapport, if he's this is kind of speculative. If he's not coaching anywhere next year, do you foresee a scenario where maybe he's around the program at all, or too soon for that question? Could we see a wave to the crowd at some point, or has that ever crossed your mind?
I would love, at the appropriate time, for that to happen. I'd love for him to be around, but that'll be purely his decision, and there's not going to be any pressure for me on that. I think, from what I understand, Thad's in a really good place right now, and I think he's enjoying family and spending time there. So I wouldn't want to push that on my end, but he would always be welcome, from my perspective, to come around whenever he wanted to.
Okay, thanks. And then just quickly, you used the word whirlwind out there, and I believe I heard you say that on the radio recently as well, which I imagine it has been a whirlwind. Given that, I'm just wondering, October 15, do you want that to come quickly so that because you're anxious to see what you have, or is it the opposite of that, where you feel like we've got a million things to do and I don't need that to come right away, if you follow my question?
Sure. No, I think I'm anxious to get our entire team and working with our entire team. We've been limited because of a variety of reasons with what we've been able to do in workouts, because sometimes we've only been able to have 6 guys out there, 6 or 7 guys at a time. So because of that, I'm anxious to get our entire group here and begin to work with them. And because I really like this group, so I'm excited about working with them, just because we've enjoyed working with them. So any coach will tell you he's anxious to get on the practice floor. We've got a lot of visits and recruiting to get done before then.
Austin Ward, Land of 10. I think the biggest cheer you got out there was when you talked about the non-conference schedule and beefing it up. I wonder, what else you got? You were shaking hands for about 30 minutes. What else you've heard from fans? If you feel like it's important, to get out there and get some of that feedback and get your face out there, because this program has had the same face for so long.
Yeah, no, I'm anxious to, spend as much time as I can with those people who are really important, who they're going to come and support us. I think our environment in there, needs to improve, and it's really important for it to improve. And we've got to do our job on our end. But I know that the scheduling has been a hot button issue. I will tell you, the schedule this year is a pretty good one. I know there are going to be some complaints with, what I think, there was probably an idea that every year it was going to be, that maybe there was a reputation with what the non-conference schedule was going to be like. I think this year's non-conference schedule that was put together before we arrived is a really challenging one, and it provides great non-conference opportunities. But I totally understand the perspective from our fan base about playing some of those people that were mentioned here, and the thirst for that to happen. And I get it. And scheduling's not something you can snap your fingers, as you know, and get done and say, okay, next year we're doing this. In some cases, there's agreements that are in place, and the Big Ten is looking at potentially changing the length of their schedule. So there's all kinds of dynamics that are in play. And then you also, again, look at the quality of your team and the fatigue and the rest and all that kind of stuff. But trust me when I tell you, we're going to work to try to bring in some of those opponents, or to play some of those opponents that were mentioned.
Yeah, Coach. Steve Halwagon with Bucknuts and 24/7. I don't know how much you went back and watched the games from the last 2 years, or when they kind of struggled a little bit, but it seemed like they were in position to win many, many more games than they ultimately ended up winning, and they would get to that point at the 38th or 39th minute where it just fell apart for them sometimes. What did you notice, I guess, that was missing? Is it a short bench because they only had 9 or 10 guys? Is that a factor in this? Or is it a psychological thing to get these guys over the hump? Or as a coach, what was there a consistent theme, I guess, to why they didn't finish, and how can you guys finish going forward?
Sure. Well, I want to be hesitant to not talk too much about even though there's a team I coach now, but a team I didn't coach and I wasn't a part of, and because coaching's hard, and there are a lot of dynamics that go into it, and you obviously had a championship level coach in Thad. I think the biggest thing that I have noticed here that in workouts that I will say about this group is incredible group, high quality people. We have to be able to respond to difficult things better. And if we don't, then there'll be some similar results. And that's the course of the game. That's through the course of a practice. That's through the course of, like, we have to do that. I have to challenge them with that. And, you know, we just have to respond to some difficult moments with more stuff. And I'm hoping that, you know, we can help facilitate that and make that happen. Does that answer your question?
Chris, it seems like you've done a good job of reaching out to the former players in the program, and they've responded well to you. But when a player like DAngelo Russell, who's as visible as he is in this building, says that he doesn't think he'll ever come back here because of the coaching change, how do you view that? Is that just one guy, no big deal? Do you try to reach out to him and smooth things over? It's not that he has a problem with you, it's just
yeah.
that,
I think it really, in a lot of ways, it speaks really well of him. You're like, Coach, how does that speak well of him? He's loyal to Thad, and I think at some point I'll reach out to DAngelo, and he actually knows a player I coached at Butler well, and we would love and welcome him back. But I did not, someone brought that to my attention, and I didn't think anything other than, hey, that's a young man who loved his coach. That's a young man who loved his coach. And there's a lot of reasons to love Thad. So I just looked at it and totally got it, and I wasn't alarmed in any way. We've had incredible support from the former players, as you mentioned, incredible support. And obviously, if DAngelo, wants to come back around, he's obviously only here a year, but if he wants to come back around, we'd love to have him back around. He made a great contribution to this place, and I think this place made a great contribution to him. But that's kind of how I looked at that. I didn't think much of it at all, and I'm excited about at some point, reaching out to him.
Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com. I feel like a lot of the questions sort of relate to this point. A lot of times when you replace a coach, it might be the situation like happened at Butler where the coach leaves under great circumstances, it's a really successful program, and the coach moves on and everybody's feeling good, right? Or you go to a program that it's clearly in disarray. Everybody can see it's a problem, and you go in and everybody wants change. This is neither, really, right? I mean, it hasn't been great the last year or two, but is a part of it harder when you come into a situation like this where it's not one of those two clear situations where a coach was let go, but there were a lot of good things in very recent times here with that. Does it make it harder for you?
No, I think there were. I think that's why, the one thing you don't want to do in my position is you want to acknowledge the really good things that Thad and his staff did, and the kind of people that were produced from this program. And I think the reality is, and everybody recognizes it, that there is significant work for us to do here, and I think that's the reality. And where you put the program currently in terms of that is probably subjective. I just know we have quality kids. Our depth is not what it needs to be, and we've got some work to do in these 18, 19, and 20 recruiting classes. But I think the kind of people that Thad and the staff were trying to bring in and wanted to bring in, I keep coming back to Jay Sean and Kate, those are really impressive guys, and you're right. And that there's a lot of good things about those guys, but we've got some work to do. And I don't know if I look at it. I came in to Butler in a little bit of a unique circumstance because I didn't follow Brad. I followed a guy who the year before we were 14 and 17, and we struggled. We had a significant injury and we struggled, so that was a little bit unique. But I think what we're just trying to do is we know this is going to be a process, and we're trying to get there as quickly as we can.
I know there's a lot of, everybody wants to ask about recruiting. Just in general, we know how good Butler is. We know Butler is a program that was in 2 national championship games. Can you recruit the same level of talent, the same kind of kids? Could you take the Butler roster and put it at Ohio State and win at Ohio State at the level that you want to and need to win at? Or is there some level of elevation?
Well, yeah, good question. Good question, and I think one that, again, I think you're right. It's a top 20 program. You're right, and I think it's a program that just was in the Sweet 16, and in years past was in the Final Four. So I think you don't want to deviate from the recipe for success. And, that program is now in a league that is considered by every metric comparable to, or if not, certainly comparable to and equal in many years to any of the other Power 5 leagues. So I do think that here you have the opportunity, your reach can be significant in terms of the kind of young men that and the talent that is available. But having said that, we're not going to compromise on the kind of people we've had. But I do think your reach is significant here, and whether it's more or less or what, that's for other people to decide. But I do think it's significant being at this place.
Tony Gerdeman, the Ozone. You mentioned filling out the roster with walk-ons. Is there a chance for another reclassification, possibly?
Sure, but it's getting late, and we've worked extensely on that because our roster could use, and certainly our roster could use another guard. But it is getting late, and it's difficult for kids at this point to make decisions with this late, but we're pursuing some things. I can't right now with confidence say we're going to add another one, though.
How long does that door stay open?
I would say the next probably 2 weeks. With school starting when it does, I would think we'll know something in the next week and a half, 2 weeks. So,
Chris, you mentioned to Austin's question that getting the environment back in here, and I think a big part of that has to do with the students.
Yeah.
And I know that goes into recruiting and a lot of things, but what do you guys have to do that? I know the football program, they have student appreciation days and things like that. I mean, do you guys have a plan for that, or is that something that you haven't had a chance to think about yet?
We do, and I have thought about it. I think we're going to have to engage with them as much as possible, and to get in front of them, to spend time. I keep coming back to, the guys that we have, and I told them this probably when I met with them 2 weeks, month and a half ago. Listen, you're in a really impressive group of people. Make sure that you spend time on campus getting to know other people and other students, because they're going to want to come and see you play. So I think as much as possible, engagement with students, myself, our staff, but our players, is going to be important. It's critical. It's another thing I heard from a coach on the road. You got to get the students back. So I think that's important. It's obviously going to be important for us, and hopefully they'll appreciate the way we play, and that'll bring some as well.
You had talked about Kata and said, he's obviously fully back to health. I know you've done a lot of nutrition stuff with the group already, but I just wonder from a health standpoint where you guys are coming through this summer, if everyone is at this point ready to go and will be ready for fall practice, and just from a nutrition standpoint, if you've seen any changes already from some of the things you guys have done?
Yeah, it's been good. I think nutrition has been important a part. It's going to continue to be an important part. Quadrin Coach Q is a big believer in that. We have a nutritionist we're working with now. She does a terrific job. We got some testing done recently in terms of body composition, and we got some work to do. We'll just leave it at that with several of our guys. I would say right now we're healthy as a group. We do have some issues that we're following up with some young men that I'm not at liberty to talk about right now. But I think overall, I would say our health is good for the most part. And again, we had half of our group here.
Bill Price from Channel 10. Is tonight's event just a one-time get-to-know-you event, or do you foresee this having like a state of the program for season ticket holders?
I'd love to do it every year. I'd love to do it every year. That would be my suggestion if there's a demand for it. That I would love to do it every year. I think it's great. I think it can give some that would like to have maybe an insight into the program, maybe able to ask some questions. I think it gives them access that they would like. So I'd be more than happy to do it. So.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks, guys.